Pianos are not made the same way. All pianists are not taught the same qualities to cherish. The tone, the precision, the articulation, the pedal, the phrase, the pulse, the rhythm, the tempo, the excitement of the race rather than the reflection, and then the freedom with the text that goes from rubato or not, or how much, or at all. And so, in fact, an industrial instrument that should not be so different from each other, of course, comparables and comparing comparables with comparables, you can say that the old wood and the quality of the building that takes know-how and craftsmanship for generations at the high level of expectation, the sound will be, of course, what the aesthetic technician of the piano chooses it to be, even the voicer who tunes it finally for the tone timbre. But then the pianist arrives after all this is finished and completed, from the construction to the voicing to the present acoustic where the instrument is placed. And there is a meeting between the pianist, the instrument, and through the acoustic, the audience, or if not, with the microphone, the individual audience member who will hear it in their headphones or in their stereo if they have any anymore. In other words, either an individualized one-to-one listener performer, either a group communal sharing of the emotion of the music being played, and if it's a concert piano from this brand or a concert piano from that brand, you could say that essentially the aesthetics are what the brand's technicians choose it to be. More sound, more roundness, more projection, more treble, more bass, more medium. Not necessarily less of the others because more of you, but there is a certain timbre of sound color that is the aesthetic of the instrument. And in a way, the instrument talks to the performer saying, that's what I can do. And if you want to obtain an accent or a tenuto or a sforzando or a sforzissimo or a mezzo fortissimo, piano, mezzo pianissimo, there are so many dosages of the tip of the finger cushion that touches the keys with a speed of depressing or with a slight delay that comes from the musical meaning of the sentence that the composer has inputted in the piano piece. And if you play the piano piece just like it's written, then you don't hear it other than what you read. And if you recompose it, rethink it, eventually enter in a daydream reimagination of the piece, then the instrument transforms each other from one to another. Every pianist playing the same instrument in the same acoustic for the same repertoire, even if it were in competitions, ends up by having a different projection of the instrument, more rounded, more sharp, more medium-oriented, depending on how it's voiced. In the playing, not in the tuning already, and in the technician's adjustment of the tone qualities that can be enhanced one way or the other, of course, negatively too. If the piano's preparation by the technician has certain aesthetics, you cannot, as a pianist, go against it and obtain something totally different. In fact, you learn to play with what you have and bring the instrument to do what you wish it to do. If you do the rearticulation within the key, and therefore you replay before it's fully up, you obtain a finger legato without the pedal. So it's a little more connected and less resonant because the dampers are not all up. But if you use the pedal, then you have more resonance that flows in the air and that you get more fluff sound. Not all of these elements are necessarily scientifically analyzed in real time when the pianists play, because they mostly don't practice on the piano on which they'll play, let less in the acoustics where the piano on which they'll play is placed. So they adjust to whatever is the feedback on the spot during the performance, and they are placed the way the pianos are built in the back of it, so you don't hear what the audience hears on the side of it where the opening of the lid is. So in a way we have a skewed perception of the real projection of the sound by being placed in the trunk, if you want, if it's an analogy with a car, where you drive it from, or that you project your imagination about how you wish it to produce the length of sound, the voicing, the layering of sounds and tones and phrases, and yeah. That is why I find it always very interesting that with high-end pianos, different pianists sound drastically different, not just a little different, to the point to which I've been often sitting in international jury seats and I pinch myself thinking, is it possible that the sound of the piano changed aesthetically basically night to day, or drastically? Is it the technique of approaching the articulation that hits the hammers, hit the strings differently, or with less velocity or with more velocity? Perhaps it happens mostly in the medium nuances, the mezzos, the mezzo piano, the mezzo forte. But at fortissimo, it's easily banged unless you use the elbow and the shoulder release and the palm of the support to be from close up and make a generous wide sound rather than just a percussive loud sound. But under fortissimo and above piano, you have a range that can be extended if you can manage to control the touch and to obtain different levels according to what the music calls, if it's a long diminuendo, a long crescendo, or just polyphony that you need to voice out so that it can speak its own interaction of voicing, something like conversation of people. Whatever the texture demands that the pianist perceives, and the security to perform it according to the fingering, according to their own, that hopefully are adapted for their own morphology, and which is also as unique as their individual. But I must say that it's still striking how an industrial instrument can sound so drastically different from a pianist to another in the intention of the sound. And it's something that you can idealize, imagine, or strive towards, but that ultimately is more obvious when you hear it and you're not playing and you realize it and you think, in fact, more of the innuendos, more of the intentions, in the mid-range dynamics, three-dimensional voicing appear to produce this beautiful, eloquent rebouncing of the sound on the walls, and you enter in a every time renewed dimension of the piece, because the piece renews itself according to the instrument and the acoustics, which change in every performance since we don't carry our pianos. So therefore we adapt to the specificity of the pianos, either new, aged, or refurbished, and somebody has already predestined the type of sound you will have because of how they're conceived and voiced. But then when you play, there is still a lot of what you can do to make a difference, to not only for the sake of the difference, of course, but to imprint your musical sound painting, individuality, conviction, analytical or intuitive or both, emotional and cerebral and driven, exteriorization of your inner world connection to the piece, which becomes you while you play it.